This episode is brought to you by Training House. Visit traininghouseshop.com. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of a podcast where Tim Ford and James Bale sit down once a week to talk about the sport of triathlon. It is Talking Triathlon. I am that guy called Tim Ford. That is that guy called James Bale. Jimbo, how you going, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm really good. I'm back in the UK after my mission over to France, well, London and London first for the T100. I got my T100 t-shirt on here, mate. I'm
A frother.
spreading the word. Hey, a frother.
Triathlon frother. Look out.
That's right. If there's anywhere I can wear my race t-shirts, it is on the podcast where we talk about triathlon.
I agree.
You won't find me wearing them outside of this setting or even to races. But yeah, not bad. Not bad. Back in the UK, it's fucking raining. What can you do?
Shocking. I did notice that you put up a photo on your Instagram account, and my little sneaky detective eyes noticed that you did have a T100 hat on as well. And I thought,
Yeah.
he is a bit of a frother. Look at that. He is a little bit of a
Mate,
try. He
if I'm
loves the
honest,
merch.
the bundle, the race day bundle provided by the T100 by the PTO for the T100 events was absolutely second to none. It was the best race day bundle I've ever received in any event I've ever done. You got a really massive duffel bag thing. You got a hat, a sort of insulated hot water mug cup thing, those things. A load of other shit, t-shirt, loads of stuff. It was really good.
You're,
It was a
you're,
good
you're,
bundle.
that's so funny to listen to the way your engagement or interest sort of like, it's so good. I got this. Oh, and a whole heap of other stuff. Like you just completely tail off, man, as you start to run out of steam a little bit. I'm glad you got a good little goodie bag of stuff from 200 London,
Yeah,
mate. That
man.
is
Yeah, it
good
was
to
good.
hear.
It's good.
And
The hat is their logo, their branding is exactly the same color as I use for my business. So my business logo. So it works. It all coordinates nicely with the way I do things.
Perfect. Love to hear it. That is good, mate. So you're back in the UK. It is raining. Literally a minute into the show, we mentioned the weather, which is
How are you, mate?
yeah, good. Nothing. Absolutely nothing to report. Actually, no, nothing. I've got a half marathon next weekend, which I'm quite looking forward to getting out and having a bit of a crack at a half marathon. I'm surprised how badly the jet lag knocked me around coming back from Europe, considering it was only a one week trip. But last week was a bit grim, sort of trying to get back into the pattern of. I took a week off actually when I was in Europe. I was feeling pretty fatigued and just wanted to have like a sort of I don't know, like a mini break to try to recover. So it took me a few days to sort of get back into the swing of things, but yeah, back to the grind. Although I got this, I guess this is probably a bit disgusting. I got this huge blood blister on my toe when I ran on Sunday.
Lovely. And you unsolicitedly sent me a picture of that, and I didn't need it in my world.
You loved it, mate. This is the
Yeah.
sort of the benefits you get of being the co-host with the mo-host. You
More importantly, though,
yes,
I need to ask your opinion on breakdancing.
yeah, okay, national hero.
What what was that all about? Because I
Absolutely.
barely paid attention. It suddenly just seems to have blown up. Does
I
no one
mean,
in Australia know how to break dance? Do they not have anybody?
I mean, it's
Does
not
no one
a
do it?
it's not a scene that I'm particularly au fait with, to be honest.
But
I don't.
no, genuine question. Is it not
No,
a thing?
I
Because they
genuinely.
obviously sent somebody who couldn't do it and was just kind of mocking it
I
slightly.
mean, did you see the guy who did the Australian guy was pretty good, I think. I mean, like I said, I don't know anything about breakdancing. But yeah, it was a bit rough. Wasn't the
Was
best.
she just taking the piss out of it?
I've heard some takes that say potentially yes. Like I think that so we're gonna randomly go down this weird rabbit hole. So her name's Rachel Gunn or Ray Gunn, has a PhD in breakdancing. Okay, or she's studying a PhD in breakdancing. And apparently I've seen commentary saying that a big concern the break community had was that if you bring this form of art, or I don't know if it's a sport, but if you bring it into something like the Olympics with very strict and stringent rules and judgments and ways to score, you lose what's special about it because it is interpretative. It's not about, 6.3 for a half pike or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. It's very
So I've seen
eye of
that.
the beholder type stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, so I've seen there's been some commentary saying that potentially this was like a form of protest of the fact that don't try to turn what is in fact an art form into I don't know. I don't know. Um, I mean, look, I find it quite good to be honest. I quite appreciate it. I think it speaks to the Australian spirit a lot of that idea of a bit of a larrikin or, the underdog. But one thing I've found quite weird is again, let's use there's two examples. Let's use the women's marathon and let's use the
Mhm.
breakdancing because in the women's marathon we had this Bhutanese athlete finish dead last. What she ran like a three something marathon, well behind the winners. And it's nothing but praise, nothing but, oh, this is the Olympic spirit. This is what it's all about. You may finish last, but you took our hearts, all this sort of stuff. Then you cut to Ray Gunn in the breakdance, and let's purely look at it athletically. If that is her doing her best, that is her running a 6 hour marathon when everybody else is running 2.5 hours. And it's not like, well done for having a go. It's like, what a fucking disgrace. This is a disgrace to the Olympics. Like, I just find the inconsistency sometimes a bit weird.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I think the criticism comes probably from a place of intentional mockery.
Mm.
It's the I don't see the Bhutanese athlete going out and intentionally trying, like, I don't know, having a roast dinner before she run the marathon and intentionally trying to make it
Drinking a
look
bottle of
silly.
wine along the
Whereas,
course or something.
yeah, stopping for a fag. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I think the impression people got with the breakdancing was that it was an intentional mockery of that event. And I think that that's probably what it just. I just haven't really paid much attention to it. I just did watch. I did watch it when I saw loads of comments in the Patreon group. I did watch it, and I was like, that doesn't look like breakdancing is. Breakdancing normally looks pretty slick. I
Yeah.
think. I imagine.
Look, yeah, I can definitely see that point of view. I don't know. I don't know if it was intentional. I don't know if it's not. I just like, and I'm more probably, yeah, there seems to be the two takes in Australia in particular where you've got, some of our, like, one of the things I really loved is a satirical newspaper in Australia called the Batuta Advocate. Like, honestly, do yourselves a favor if you like that sort of Aussie sense of humor a bit. But they're like, the rest of the world can't handle this street level shit. And it's like a clip of her. Like, I liked that sort of stuff. But yeah, you do have these, it's very extreme reactions. And I mean, personally, extreme reactions is something that I've never really understood to most things. Uh, but yeah, there
No,
you go.
no, it amused me.
I'm glad. I'm glad that it tickled your
There
fancy.
you go.
Yeah, there you go. We are going to. I mean, you also said it. The women's both marathon events I thought were phenomenal. By the way, I
Yeah, the men's marathon was good, but it was fairly clear who the winner was going to be from quite a far way out. The women's marathon, oh my God, that finish. It was astounding. I loved every second of it. And the way they bumped shoulders as they came into that final couple of turns. They were giving it some, and it I mean, basically it was a five-way sprint from about a kilometer out.
Now I've had this conversation with a few people after watching the marathons. Some people in the sport of triathlon, some people outside of the sport of triathlon. The responses have been varied and different, but I'd love to get your take on it, uh, James. Is that when you watch that marathon, you're right. Even though the men's race was relatively obvious from the moment that the attack happened on those climbs, that he was probably going to win it, I still found the whole thing extremely entertaining. And then I think to a triathlon or an Ironman in particular, where you watch the run and it ain't even close to being, we see these Ironmans where there's, minutes gaps. There's just athletes sort of running
Mm.
individual time trials. There's not that real element of racing. And I'd love to get your opinion on how do you think we create a situation in which we start to get more, like, we still froth over this day to the 1989 Ironman, which, a race that happened, like, what are we talking? Nearly 40 years ago, 30 something years ago, because of the fact that you had these two guys race shoulder to shoulder. Why, or what do you think it would take for us to see Ironman in a position where we do have, like, that race, the 200 San Francisco, we had those three guys. Imagine that in an Ironman over a marathon. Like, what do you think it would take for that sort of thing to happen? Why don't we see it?
I think we are going to start seeing it as the sport matures and the level of professionalism in it deepens. I think we're going to start, the athletes going to start closing the gaps on each other, and you're going to start seeing more races like that. It's just taking longer than some people in the sport expected to get that depth of professionalism within the field. Um, I've been going on a similar thought journey, watching the Olympic road race, for example, and then obviously the marathons as well for the same reasons. And I think I put some comments in the group like, this is how you do commentary for a race like this. The road race was brilliant, but it was 188 kilometers or something. And no, it wasn't. It was 200 and something kilometers. It was the longest Olympic road race of all time. The commentary was brilliant because they're not just talking about the race, they're talking about the tactics that are happening on the ground, but they're also talking about the environment. They're talking about monuments that we're seeing and interesting places around Paris and the surrounding countryside and what you can do there and different wines and regional food and it's like a journey through that environment. In the marathon, the commentary was again excellent, but they'd cut away from the race. They'd show you each landmark as you went past it, and they'd give you the name of that landmark, and they'd tell you the history about it and what it was about. And that was excellent. And then I think to triathlon commentary, much like you are with trying to create the actual dynamics of the racing. And I'm like, we don't get that shit in triathlon, but certainly not with the Ironman Pro Series. It's just a non-stop stream of fucking boringness and adverts, and it feels really odd. The difference between the two. One's a pure cycle race, two marathons, and the women's cycle race as well. I watched that, and that was amazing as well. Why can't we join those dots together and commentate as if we're commentating on a really long bike race and a really long marathon, a really long run? I, I just don't understand it.
I mean, I've definitely walked away from the games, and I know we're not here to talk about the Olympics. We've sort of made a point of actually not, we're not going to talk about the racing so much, but yeah, I feel like there was a lot of things that I've seen that happen in these Olympics that have made me go, okay, we need to learn a lesson from this. Not just the commentary. I mean, like I said last week, the courses, there has to be something that can be done to literally try. I mean, I've said it a long time. I feel like one of the biggest missing parts of triathlon as a broadcast is that they forget that it's a spectacle for the people in real life as well. You watch football on TV because you can't be there. You watch the Tour de France on TV often because you can't be there. You know, the 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 main objective should always be to have a live sport experience with the TV as you do it because you can't be there, right? And I think that is sometimes forgotten a little bit with triathlon because
Mm.
there's not enough effort put into that live. Like, I mean, I still think back to Super League Singapore in 2019, and yes, there was a VIP area, but in between, they basically created like an isolated island in the middle of the course, and it had food trucks, and it had music, and it had a play area for kids, and it was an actual like, here's a spot to be. There's stuff happening here, so that
Yeah.
and I feel like that, that is something that I think if you sort of marry those things up, great locations for races or better. I'm not expecting us to suddenly go from, Cagliari to downtown Rome, but I think that a progression towards better locations, more effort into the activations and on-course experience, more effort into the branding and the actual way that the course displays. So you're not going through just construction zones with a couple of witches hats. Like, let's ban witches hats, in triathlon.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
make
No,
that
no
a
more cones.
no
No
more
more
cones.
cones.
I feel like, yeah, there's so much stuff that, and then the racing, like, and I was actually talking with Joe Skipper about this yesterday. And because I mean, I've sort of been on this bandwagon for a long time now. People who've listened to this show for a long time will know that I often bring up the idea of a long distance draft legal race. And I know that it's like, fucking, how dare you say something so blasphemous? Settle down, amateurs. I'm not saying you have to do it. But I was talking to Joe and I said, do you think that if we had I mean, I would just love to see one brand, whether it's Challenge, whether it's PTO, whether it's Ironman, try as a concept, a one-off long distance draft legal race and see it, like, and I'm not just talking like individuals. I mean, like proper Tour de France, like let's have teams built around a team captain who are probably the best runners. So you have a Patrick Lang team, you have
Yeah. And
and
you've got groups of cyclists looking after their team leader, and
yeah.
it's like captures the essence of the Tour de France in a way.
Yeah, and then you deliver these, five, six, seven guys who can all drop a low 230 or probably, even under 230, if they've been towed around and have them, all get off the bike relatively close to each other and see what happens. I just think that I'd love to see it as a thought experiment, right? But Joe was saying that he doesn't think that he was saying that if you did that, he's actually not sure that you'd still get the shoulder to shoulder run. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. He said he just thinks that if you actually purely look at the runners in the sport, the best runners in the sport and that's what you sort of said, right? Is that the depth isn't there, and there's too much of a variation between run skill set.
Yeah,
Like there's not 10
I
guys.
agree.
Like Patrick Lang is an
You,
outlier, right? And then
yeah.
you've got these sort of tiers, and you don't have a group of super, like, you
No,
look at
you
most
don't. You
marathon
don't
runners,
have
right?
that.
It's
It's not professional marathon field where the difference is
yeah,
tiny percentages. This is a difference where if the group came into the T2 as a peloton and no one had attacked and got away or escaped on a climb or something, then you're delivering a load of runners all starting at pretty much the same time with huge degree of
yeah,
variability that, as to their abilities. And someone like Patrick Lang would fuck off into the distance in a environment like that. The
yeah,
only reason that he ever really gets pushed as a race is because he's not a stronger cyclist and he's normally
yeah.
making up a deficit. So yeah, it would be interesting, but I think we need that. We need that depth. We need the depth to creep down so that everybody's getting closer and closer and closer all the time. Because the closer the athletes are in abilities, the closer the racing is always going to be.
Yeah, look, we've taken. Thank you for taking me down this interesting path. It's
We
15,
start
60
the
minutes in.
breakdown soon.
I was going to say, so obviously we do it. I missed it, but thank you guys for listening. If you want to support the podcast, head to patreon.com/talking triathlon. You get access to bonus monthly shows, WhatsApp group, Strava group, Facebook group, all the good stuff. The WhatsApp group has not stopped this week, and it was also nice. I do love we. I got in a bit of trouble this week on Instagram from a very unhappy listener when I suggested that the secret to stopping age group doping was to maybe stop focusing so much on age group trophies and slots and stuff. And somebody who was very angry, and it was nice to share that with the Patreon group and have them go like, no, that guy was a dickhead. So it's a good place. It's an encouraging place. Head to patreon.com/talking triathlon. Thank you to our new signups this week, by the way. We had a few new members join, which is always cool.
We go.
Uh, let's start about something we touched on last week, and we touched on it, and it was actually a comment that came through on our YouTube account. So thank you very much, which was around the idea of a wild card for Taylor Knibb and getting her to Nice, because after the Olympics, she said she wants to do it. And the comment was, doesn't Taylor Knibb have a slot, a wild card based on the fact that she's last year's 70.3 winner? Which I thought that's an extremely good point. So we've gone to tryrating.com. Again, I think a really good website for anybody who sort of wants it. And we're going to talk about the men that have qualified for Kona. And then obviously we can talk about Taylor Knibb. So James, going on that list, we did get a little bit of clarity around how it works, I suppose, with the wild cards and the past winners and things like that. So it looks to me, mate. I mean, do you want to go through this, or do you want me to, like, how do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, basically, you can look at the list, and if someone is qualified to race in Nice, their name is on there, and it just says slot type race. If if they've qualified through, but they need to validate if they qualified through previous achievements. For example, if they were the world champion within the last 5 years, or the 70.3 world champion, then they get that slot type says champion there, but they have to validate by completing at least one Ironman or two 70.3s within the time period dictated by Ironman. If they have validated, there's nothing there. If they haven't validated, then there's a brackets with NV in it, which is not validated. And Taylor Knibb is shown as having a slot for Nice, but brackets not validated. So she's got to go and do either two 70.3s or one Ironman. She doesn't have to achieve anything special within that race. She just has to complete it in order to validate for to go and race Nice.
Now, the reason this is interesting, because I was a little bit confused, because correct me if I'm wrong, and I mean, I'm not sure if you can pull up the PTO results while I'm speaking, but last year Taylor Knibb raced Kona and she got the slot as the 70.3 world champion, I believe. But I don't remember Taylor Knibb having raced an Ironman before Kona. So was that a case of she got that from completing two 70.3s, or did they sort of change anyway, look, that's something. But basically the pathway forward for Taylor Knibb is to either complete. I actually think she might have missed the cutoff for the two 70.3s. I have a feeling that that had to be within the qualification period for 70.3 worlds, which finished at the end of July. So I feel like the only way she can do it is actually to complete an Ironman at this point, which is, I think they
So
said, yeah.
October 2022, she won the Ironman 70.3 World Championships,
Yep.
and then she did two 70.3s in 2023.
That'll be it then.
So
That's what
that's how
she's
she
done.
got to Hawaii.
And Rico Bogan this year, because Rico is in the same position. He's the current 70.3 world champion. He's on that list as having a slot that isn't
Yes.
validated. But I don't think he's done any 70.3s since he has done the T100 races. But I can't remember him being on a, I mean, maybe he's been on a start list or maybe he's finished one. I think maybe he did one in, did he do that one in Spain earlier this year? I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, so basically it looks like Taylor Niv is eligible to race Nice. She just has to validate. And I know that Ironman have come out and said that if she races in
Rico
Sweden.
did 70.3 Les Sables.
Yep.
Other than that, he hasn't
Yeah,
done
yeah.
any.
So I think Ironman have come out and said that if she races at Sweden, Ironman
Yeah.
Kalmar, then she's eligible to race Nice. And and I guess we'll probably just go into Frankfurt chat because last week I actually thought Frankfurt was last weekend, so we sort of touched on it a little bit last week, but it is actually this weekend with a fucking stacked field and more stacked even
Stack
since
field
then.
+1 now, eh?
Yeah, but the thing that I found interesting was Christian Blumenfeld is confirmed to be racing Ironman Frankfurt this weekend, and I saw him interviewed by Try 24/7, but I've seen comments he's been putting up online where basically he's like, it's survival. Like this is just going to be. He just needs to finish the race right. I mean,
Yeah,
he's
indeed. I mean, if you look at the men's list for qualified for Kona, he's on that list, but he's got the brackets NV, which is not validated. So all he has to do is get around the course and
competitively,
cross that finish
competitively.
line.
Remember, that's
Yeah, yeah.
the weird
Yeah,
caveat.
that's
So
and that's the open to interpretation they give themselves, isn't it? Because he can't just do what I did in the T100 London and just have a day out.
no.
He has to be seen to be within the context, whoever's interpreting it, competitive.
So let's talk about the start list. Or before we do that, actually, before we do that, let's just go through a little bit and let's look at the men's in particular, because I believe that the next 2 weeks are the last opportunities athletes have to qualify for world championships. And interestingly, there are a few names who are missing from the list at the moment, or names that we probably used to see on there that haven't made it this year. Obviously, Joe Skipper being one of the obvious ones. But do you want to go through the list and talk about the athletes that have qualified, mate? Because I mean, we don't need to talk about every single one of them, but there
Yeah, I
are.
don't have a list in front of me. Have you got the list in
Yeah,
front of you
I
there?
certainly do. Yep. So the people that we've got who are definitely, currently we've got Patrick Lang, Gustav Eden, Ben Canute, Sam Laidlow, Magnus Ditlev. Who else we got? Jason Pohl, Michael Weiss, Matthew Marquette, Casper Stepaniak, Rudy von Berg, Leon Chevalier, Chris Lefferman, Robert Wilowiceki, Daniel Beckergaard, the man, Matt Burton, Nick Thompson, Ben Hamilton, Steve McKenna, Rasmus Svenningsson, Cam Worth, Matt Hansen.
Rasmus isn't racing.
He isn't.
Nope.
There you go. That's breaking news. Sam Appleton, Thomas Rodriguez is not racing, I'm guessing. Braden Curry's on there. Arno Gilio's on there. Mike Phillips is on there. Dennis Chevro's on there. Arthur Horseau's on there. Dave McNamee's on there. Thor Bendix Madison, Bradley Weiss, Trevor Foley, Jackson Laundry, and Lionel Sanders is the latest athlete to be on that list. Interestingly, athletes who decline their spots, there's no men. It's only women at the moment who have declined their spots. But yeah, there's some names that we're probably used to seeing, not just Joe, but that like Alistair Brownlee, for example. We know that Ali ran
Hang
the
on. I thought you were reading out the start list for Frankfurt.
no Kona.
No, I've been, yeah. Then completely retract my Rasmus isn't racing comment. That was wrong. And I thought you were talking about Frankfurt for some
I
reason.
know, and at no point you're like, fucking hell, this is a pretty stacked. It's
I
a
was,
pretty
yeah, I was thinking, it's Jesus, it's got even more stacked
Lionel
than when we
Sanders.
read it out.
Lionel Sanders is
Yeah.
doing Frankfurt and Canada back to back. Shit.
So yeah, retract my Rasmus isn't racing. He's not racing Frankfurt this coming weekend, but he will be in Kona.
But yeah, so the obvious names to me then that I suppose haven't qualified for Kona and aren't is Alistair Brownlee. I can't see him do anything. Max Newman is on the start list of Frankfurt, but I can't, if he's anything like he was in London, I can't see him qualifying unless he was
No.
absolutely sandbagging everybody. Joe Skipper
I
has.
mean, you never know. He might find a rich vein of form.
So yes, that is the list of men who have qualified. And like I said, there are a few names that are obviously missing. I feel like, Yeah, I mean, to be honest, going through that's most of the names. Like I sort of feel like I've named the ones that are obviously that are a bit weird that they're not there. But I'm surprised to see how many of those guys are also the T100 athletes. Like there really is a huge crossover there, I think. And
Mm.
yeah, I just find it fascinating to see that, we go down to this last sort of 2 weeks of opportunities to qualify, and suddenly an athlete like Sam Long has stepped up. So now we do, like, if you want to have a bit of a chat around that, I will try to bring up the start list for Ironman Frankfurt again. And
Yeah, like like you said, I mean, Kona, it's going to be a strange Kona. Like you say, we haven't got certain names that we'd expect to see there, like Joe, for example, like you just said, Alistair Brownlee. Um, and I mean, Jan Frodeno's on this list because he's within that time scales of being the champion, but he's obviously got a not validated and probably and most likely will not be validating for this race. But
who knows? Maybe he'll get the itch, mate.
he'll get the itch, yeah. Um, it's going to be a hell of a race. I mean, it'd be the first time the men have raced solo on Kona, and I think it's going to be really interesting watching it play out. Um, and the start list is deep, isn't it? It really
Always.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be. I don't know whether. Do you think that the element of it being a solo men's race this year will have any impact on the way the race plays out?
No, I think that we saw it as an individual day in 2022, and it was just business as usual. I mean, the difference between the men's and the women's race, I think, is that the women's race has always kind of been affected more by the male, not so much the male pro race, but probably more the male age group race. That's not such a
Mm.
factor anymore. Whereas the men's pro race, I think, is always just sort of done its own thing. They go off first, they're faster than everybody. It's relatively unimpeded. So I don't see
Yeah.
there being too much of a difference, to be honest. But I mean, the other thing as well, when you look at that stuff, it does also, I think, credit to the PTO a little bit. And when we go to Frankfurt a little bit too, it does show just how good those PTO start lists have been, considering so many of those names are also T100. Like, I think that when you actually really look at it and you list, you're like, fuck yeah, okay, the T100 have done an excellent job of getting the names to their races this year. I've got the Frankfurt start list here. We touched on it last week, but it has changed a little bit. The big names: Patrick Langer, Christian Blumenfeld, Matt Hansen, Jackson Laundry, Robert Willowiceki, Trevor Foley, Clement Filet Mignon, Nick Thompson, Braden Curry, Sam Long, Christian Hogenhag, Bradley Weiss, Gregory Barnaby, Cam Worth, Mino Koolhaas, who else? Casper Stepaniak, Mike Phillips, Ben Hamilton, Mitch Kibbe, Jesper Svensson, Florian Angert. Any other names that I recognize there? Fucking hell, mate. There's 10,000 names on this start. Holy shit. There's 80 names on this start list. Fuck
It's
me.
going to be a hell of a race. Sam Long is the interesting addition for me. I wasn't expecting to see him throw his hat into the ring with his statement that he was going to be focusing on the PTO all season, and then
It's
he had
I've got
one
a
bad race in London,
I've
and
got a
boom, he's
sore
going to go and race Frankfurt.
I've got a sore neck, James. I don't know. I've got this kick on my neck. It's almost like I've gotten whiplash trying to fucking
Yeah,
keep track with what Sam is doing, because he did really well at the start of the year. He's had an incredible start to the year. Announced he's going to go to Cairns. Has a fucking shocker in San Francisco. Goes, I got a little bit greedy. I shouldn't have done it. I'm not going to go to Cairns. I'm not worried about Kona. I need to focus on the T100. That's my goal this year. Takes the
yeah,
time off, goes to London, is absolutely terrible, and suddenly we're back. Like, it's honestly like just fucking back.
yeah, yeah.
He's
It's
giving me
like
Lionel
he's got
Sanders
a.
flashes, mate.
I was going to say he's got a dose of the Lionels, isn't he? Because obviously he's going to be trying to qualify for Kona here, and that must be on his list now because I don't see any other reason why someone who has decided to focus on the T100 and has been doing really well at those series would, if Kona wasn't his objective, then he wouldn't be going and doing this race with this field.
What do you like?
It,
I mean, from the point, there's still what, three or four, I should know, T100 races to go this year. Sam's had now two bad ones, two good ones. Do you think he
hmm,
considers it almost impossible for him to win the thing now, and that's why he's suddenly shifting his focus? Like, why would you, if you were
I don't
Sam,
know.
Like it just seems a very, like I said, like the whiplash in the neck a little bit. Like there must be a reason for it because otherwise it seems like I just feel like a lot of the athletes don't seem to understand that this rich vein of money that's in the sport at the moment ain't going to last forever. And
I
I'm
mean, I
surprised.
don't think Sam Long is in a position to, with the T100, to think, like you just said, there's no chance of me winning this. I might as well go do Kona. I mean, he's third in the rankings. He's on
Mm,
70 points, so he's 9 points behind Magnus Ditlev. You know, it's not a writing yourself out of this championship position.
it's
He's got plenty more scope to win that. Carl Smith is in second with 76 points. So, and Sam, you know, on his day has got a victory on this series nailed down because he's come very close.
I would also think that if Magnus is leading the series, we've seen Magnus have a great race in Roth, and he was a little bit soft after Roth in London. He's obviously going to go to Kona trying to win the thing after having a podium place in France last year. He's probably going to come back after and also be a bit soft. I would have thought if you're Sam Long, then you'd be like, well, fucking hell, I'm going to do absolutely everything in my power to be able to pounce on that when that
Yeah.
comes to.
It would be nice to be able to ask Sam what his rationale is, to be able to understand his thought process, because that Ironman Frankfurt is going to take a dent out. If to in order to be up there and to qualify for Kona, he's going to have to give it everything. It's going to be a really deep dig into his energy reserves. That's going to take some coming back from, and then it's going to be what, Ibiza on the 28th, 29th of September for the T100. So he's got some time to do some recovery and some training. It's not like Ibiza is immediately following, but an Ironman takes it out of you. It ain't it ain't a T100 tile distance. It's an Ironman. It's one of the biggest races you can do.
Knowing our thoughts on Sam Long, which we sort of said again for quite a while now, where if he has a weakness, much like Lionel, it does seem to be at that iron distance, that long course racing. How do you see this? I mean, he could be just like, I'm just doing it. I'm going to do a long training day anyway. I know he's been in Europe since, at least he was in Europe for a few weeks after London. Is it just a case of, well, I'm out doing a lot of volume anyway? I might as well go out there. Maybe he's just going to do the swim and bike and withdraw, or do a couple. I don't know. Like,
Yeah. I
maybe we're
mean,
reading too much into it.
yeah, maybe he may be there for a long training day, but I mean, my assumption is that he is going there to try and qualify for Kona because he wants to be on the island
I think
for
the only
the
thing
big
is that a
day.
lot of those athletes on that star list have already got a slot. Like if you actually look at that name, those names that I've read
That's true.
out, there's a lot of athletes quite deep that have slots. I expect the slots to, unless the people who, because this is a pro series race, which means there's going to be people out there going for the pro series points. So I think that, yeah, those slots could roll quite a ways down in
That is true. That is
Frankfurt.
true. That's a very, very good point, to be honest. So he could pick up a slot, not easily, but he could pick up a slot just through osmosis for where he would finish with his current level of form and fitness.
I don't hate it though. Like I said, I always like Sam Long being on a start list. He
Oh,
adds
totally. Yeah.
adds so much to us. And again, I'm already quite interested in Frankfurt. I'm curious to see how this race unfolds. Chuck it in a Sam. I think, especially considering this is a longer bike course than other Ironmans. Like it is closer to like a 186. I mean, it's not heaps, but it is extra. Some of the power in that swim, he is going to be making up a gap as he always does. Yeah, I'm fascinated to see how he goes, and hopefully we get a good race there. Patrick Langer as well has been a little bit hit and miss, and I mean even to that point, I wonder if, I wonder if, nah, it wouldn't. I was going to say if they do end up changing the points from Texas with Thomas Rodriguez been disqualified, which he hasn't technically been yet, like would those points have changed Patrick Lang's decision, or will they have changed the approach that Patrick Lang takes to this race, considering that he had a bad Ironman? I think he's done a few Ironmans this year already. So
Yeah.
yeah, just there's lots of interesting factors, but good to see Sam Long. On the anything else you want to say about Frankfurt? Because we can quickly transition to another Ironman race that has a big name on the start list, if you like.
No, you're good. Let's move on.
Well, we also got news last week, and I think it was actually preparing for last week's episode when I was looking at the start list and I came across the Ironman Canada start list. And at the top of that start list is none other than Mr. Lionel Sanders. And
Jimmy No Limits is going
uh,
to race Ironman Canada.
and I thought to myself, that can't be right. Like that, why would Lionel be doing another Ironman when he's already qualified? And But I think that you said that he's come out and he's sort of made some comments about this. What has Lionel got to say
Yeah.
about racing Canada, mate?
Well, not a huge amount about racing Canada. He just said, I am going to do an Ironman Canada, which is on the 25th of August. So he will be there racing that. But he has made some statements about um, his approach to Kona and how he no longer wants to think about trying to win it. He just wants to think about trying to get the very best out of himself on the day. Um, he explained, I'm done with saying I want to win. I want to win. I've been doing this so long. I want to achieve what is possible. The winning part's not relevant to that. The part that's relevant, I think I can swim low 50s. I think I can push 310, 320 on the bike. And I think I can break 240 on the run. I think that's within me. That's really hard for me. If I put together all those three, then that's the limit of my capability. If you achieve the limits of your capability, you achieve the limits of your capability, of your capacity. Sorry, if you achieve the limits of your capacity, you achieve the limits of your capacity. And if it's good for the win, if it's good. If it's not, it's not. What more can you do? What more can you ask? Which I think is an interesting mindset shift. He's now just trying to get the very best out of himself, and if he thinks he can get that, then if that allows him to take the win, then fair enough. But he's also said that I don't think it's valuable for me to train with people. It impairs my capacity to listen to my body. I've been out there with Trevor Foley a million times. He's running away from me, and I'm pushing too hard. It's too hard. It's maladaptive stimulus. It's too much stimulus. You can't train where you want to be. You've got to train where you are. And that's the only way training works. Today, I listened to my body. Here I am. I'm in good shape, mentally and physically. It's hot. I probably lost 4 pounds, even though I drank 1.3 liters in running fast, and I am where I am. So yeah, I think he's had another bit of sort of shift in direction, a shift in approach. He's going to be training entirely solo and focusing less on the victory and more on individual performance.
Now, this uh so I hear this, and firstly, good on him. I think it's a really it shows the evolution of Lionel as an athlete in a lot of ways. Having said that, however, like professional racing, and again, maybe it has become this, but to me, this is the biggest problem we have with professional racing at the moment is you have too many athletes who are out there doing their own individual effort, like it's a TT race. It's one of the reasons I'm quite critical of the way Magnus races, is that Magnus does what Magnus does, and the results either fall or don't fall for him. I guess I've always sort of seen Lionel more as a bit of a dog, like a bit of a bulldog sort of thing, where he does sort of attack the situation as it comes, which is what I want to see happen in pro racing. Because I think looking at an athlete like Magnus, which I guess is what Lionel is now sort of trying to emulate, I'm sort of interpreting. You see Magnus not win when he doesn't get to dictate the terms of the race. When suddenly, people are attacking or people are working out ways to put him in a position where he isn't just doing his thing. That's when we've seen him sort of not go as well. Now, I think back to Lionel's 2021 in 22 St. George race. And we know that that's what he did. He went as like he just TT'd his own. He did his own race. He came second. I feel like that has probably been a bit of a like with Lionel, we're constantly talking about history repeating itself, and I know that his coach at the time was quite frustrated with Lionel in Kona because he took a similar approach. Where I mean, even I know that Joe, for example, was telling me how he was talking to Lionel about like we need to get out of the swim together, we need to rip the bike together, and Lionel's like, I'm just going to do my thing, I'm just going to do my thing, and his thing was nowhere near competitive in Kona. Do you think that maybe that result in St. George in 2022, where he did come second as a result of doing his own effort, has given him this like not false sense of security, but like is this the origin of his belief that I can follow my race plan and good things will probably happen? Like, do you think it's in a because to me it sounds very age grouper, right? And I'm not that's not a criticism, but like that's how I approach my race. I go out there to do the best swim I can do, the best bike I can do, the best run I can do, and not really worry about what's happening around me. How do you see this going for Lionel?
I hope this is just a psychological approach to stop, because he hasn't had the greatest of um, results of late. He hasn't been winning a huge amount, and I'm hoping this is a psychological game he's playing with himself Obviously, he won Oceanside, he won Mont Tremblant, so he's having a good season this year. Third at Lake Placid, but he hasn't on the really big stages where Kona, Nice. He hasn't been performing to a level that we hope he probably expects of himself. And I feel like this is a psychological approach to buffer himself from that, to just be like, it doesn't matter who's beating you and where they're beating you or how they're beating you. You need to just focus on what you can do. Because if you focus entirely on what you can do, then you're going to get the best out of yourself. I don't know whether it's a particularly effective way for him to stimulate that performance out of himself. Like you say, I tend to agree that he's a bit of an attack dog. And if he starts isolating his mindset so much that he starts to try and race like Magnus, I worry that he would just almost get bored and not, you won't see that fired up Lionel come out. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, no, 100. Like when I think about like Lionel is best, right, is getting out of the swim with a deficit, absolutely ripping the bike to get to the front. Like, and I guess I'm not in his head. I've never spoken a word to Lionel Sanders in my life, but I don't imagine he's like, I'm just going to hold my watts. He's like, I'm going to get to the fucking front of this race. Like it's
Yeah,
that,
fuck those bastards. I'm
it's
coming
yeah,
for him.
it's that killer fucking mongrel that I love about him. And I think of the thought of going, no, 310 watts. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, totally.
Yep. Oh, a bit
And I mean,
fast.
he's
Nope.
talking in this about being able to, if he holds that watts, then he wants to break 240 off the bike because he's run 240, he's run 242, both off hard bikes. He thinks it's within him to run 240, and he's probably looking at it thinking, if I just back off the bike a bit, I might be able to break that 240 marathon. But I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know. I don't see that for him being the correct approach. I might be wrong. I've been wrong many times,
You see, I
but
feel like the approach to racing for somebody like Lionel is minimizing the gap out of the swim, doing what it takes to get to the front of the race on the bike, and then running that same run. Because the problem is that those guys ahead of you who aren't getting out of the water, they're probably low, mid to high 40s, who are then also riding 310 to 320 watts, are also running 240-ish or sub 230, 40 marathons. Like
exactly.
to me, that's the approach is minimize my swim loss, do what it takes to get into a competitive position off the bike.
Maximize the bike, which is what you're really, really good at, and then run the difference between a 240 and a 242 is 2 minutes. If you don't make up that 2 minutes on the bike, then that 2 minutes is still there at the end.
Okay.
It's you're still losing by however whatever amount.
Yeah. I know you hate this, and I know I do it to you all the time, but let's role play a little bit then. I want you need to occupy the mindset of Lionel Sanders. Okay. So right now you're Lionel, and Lionel finishes Kona, and he has done that. He has swum a 50-minute swim. He has averaged 319 normalized power, average power 318, and he's run a 239 marathon. He's finished 10th. Is Lionel happy because he's finished 10th? Is he annoyed that he hasn't won the thing? Or is he happy because he's reached what he perceives to be his limit?
Then all I can do in my role play of Lionel Sanders is take his word as gospel.
I think bullshit. I think he's not
And in
happy.
this interview, he says he's not worried about his position as long as he knows he's got the best out of himself. So that version of him that I'm hearing about now has to be happy with that because you run a, what was it, 238, did you say?
Yeah.
And it's the first time he's broken 240 and he's overjoyed. But in my
He's overjoyed.
individual, yeah, in my individual personal interpretation of Lionel, who I think he is, bollocks. He wants
Yeah,
to be up the front. He wants to
exactly.
fight in any. And I worry that this, if he veers to different things so often that I don't think he's got much time left to be veering in a different direction and making another couple of years of mistakes where I decided to just train solo and race entirely for my own achievement. Well, all right, but you finished fifth and you finished seventh.
Yeah.
If you want to get that victory, you've got to go all out and fucking have it. Go get it.
If you want to have a victory and go all out, then you need to head to this week's sponsor, which is Training House. Training House is an online website, a website where you can go and you can buy a whole range of products for your triathlon needs. And Jimbo, the thing we wanted to talk about this week is their packages. Tell me about the
Yeah,
packages
man.
available on Training,
I was I was I was
traininghousheshop.com.
looking around their web traininghousheshop.com. I was looking around their website, and as we've spoken about many times, you can personalize and individualize your selections. Nutrition bar by gel by drink powder. You can choose them all and create your own little package. But they've also got very economically viable option is you can choose bundles. They've got the Sydney Marathon bundle, the Performance bundle, and the Race Day bundle. And within each bundle, you have options to choose the variations of the bundle, or the contents of the bundle. And the list is extensive. You've got all the different protein powders and bars and gels. It's quite a good, because the beauty of Training House is you can buy nutrition individually, but sometimes you do just want to rely on an expert's opinion as what a good combination of things is for your particular focus. Like they say, they've got this marathon bundle, performance bundle, race day bundle, and within that you can personalize it yourself and choose how you want that mix to be presented. And I'm here for it, mate.
I think it's a good starting point, right? Because a lot of the people who come, I know that it can be really intimidating. One of the biggest questions I get from people is like, what's your nutrition plan? Or how do I fuel for a race? And I'm like, I'm not a dietitian. Don't like talk to a professional. But I
Yeah.
think that if you are sort of not quite sure, you can go and you can do one of these. You can try the setup they've suggested. And then from that point, you can retrofit your own sort of approach. Okay, this is the approach I've been told by this website, Training House. Let's give it a go. Okay, I find that I probably need a bit more gel. I'll just order myself a few more next time. I think it is just a
Yeah.
really good sort of starting point, and then you can sort of retrofit your approach, and things like the fact they've got like chamois cream or gooch goo. It's like, yeah, people don't realize how badly they need that stuff until often it's too late. So
I've
yeah,
never used it. I've never used chamois cream.
ever.
Ever. Never had to.
That explains a lot. Um, head to traininghouseshop.com. You can check out their packages, their bundles, as well as their full range of products. They've got water bottles you can pre-order at the moment. So it's traininghouseshop.com. Support a great brand that supports us to do what we do on this podcast. James Bale, it
Yeah,
is
mate.
time for one of our favorite series of the year, kicking off this weekend. It is Supertri 2024. This weekend, it all kicks off in Boston before back-to-back weekends in the US of A. How are you feeling about Supertri this year, mate?
I am excited, mate. It's
I can tell you sound excited. It's just the
ha,
the
I
excitement
am
is
excited.
palpable.
I love a bit of super try racing. I almost call them Super League now.
So do I.
Um,
Still do it, mate, all the time.
yeah, yeah. So on the 18th of August, we've got the Boston race, and the men start at 12:30 local, and the women start at 12:30 local, and the men start at 1:45 local. And we've got their new setup with the teams, and it's I think it's going to be really exciting. We've got this series. Let's have a look at the events
I can tell
list.
you.
On the 18th of August, we've got Boston. On the 8th of September, we've got London. On the 6th of October, we've got Toulouse. On the 25th of August, we've got Chicago. And on the 3rd of November, we've got Neon.
What a strange way to read out the dates then. You went Boston, London, Toulouse, back to Chicago, down to New York.
I just read across the screen as it's presented to me. In
Yes.
fact, while I was reading it, I didn't notice that Chicago was after Boston. But I have just caught up. Yeah, so Boston, Chicago, London, Toulouse, Neon is the order of things.
So it is a very different looking Supertri this year. So many. Firstly, one of the things there's no more of those goddamn animals. They've gotten rid of the animals. It is a franchise model now with the four teams. We've got Crown Racing, we've got Brownlee Racing, we have got Stars and Stripes, and we've got Podium Racing. It's four teams. There's a bigger focus on the teams this year. They've changed the prize money to make it much less about the individual performance and much more about the team performance, which I'm really curious to see how this unfolds. And there's also less athletes. The teams have four males and four females in most cases, which means only 16 rather than the 20 we saw last year, which means it's harder. I mean, I can talk from personal experience with my clients. It is harder to get a contract this year than it has been in the past. We've seen the names listed. Like, these teams are stacked, mate. All four of those teams have
Yeah, yeah.
some real firepower in them. And I mean, the thing I'm really curious about is, are we actually going to see a shift? Like I look at those teams, and I mean, the obvious one is Crown Racing that's got, Vincent Louis, Max Stapley, Hayden Wild, Cassandra Bergeron, Georgia Taylor Brown, Kate Woff. And I look at them and on paper, I'm like, fucking hell, that is a
The beast,
goddamn
isn't it?
strong team.
Yeah.
But I wonder if we're going to see a team like Crown Racing, but all of them, Brownlee Racing as well. They got Alex E, Johnny Brownlee, are they going to be able to race as a team? Because I feel like, and this is, my hope is that we're actually going to see the teams work together as a team because the focus is so much on that group performance. Or do you think we're just going to see triathletes doing what they do, racing for themselves, and yeah, I'm part of a team, wave the flag at the end, wear the same uniform?
I think we're going to see it gel as a team. I think if there's one thing previously Super League and now Superdry have done over the years, it's very much earn the benefit of the doubt.
Mm.
You know, they have changed things often. They've tried things, and most of the time it works. Thank fuck the animals have gone. Honestly, like thank fuck.
Thank fuck.
But but I think you'll start to see because they create a lot of people won't know this unless you've been in the environment. But there's a real difference between, from an athlete's perspective, on the ground in the Super League environment to on the ground in the WTCS environment or at an Ironman event or whatever you're racing or a T100. They create such a welcoming environment for the athletes that race this series that I think we really will start to see these team dynamics gel. And because it's not, I mean, the Olympics is over, it's not the WTCS, it's not individual pursuit, it's a team thing. And also, it's not the bulk of the year, it's quite short and sharp, and it's a period where all these races come, and it's an opportunity for these athletes to work in a different way and be a little less single minded and single focused. And I really do think it's going to work. And I think we will see some really interesting racing. I think we've already seen
Yeah.
that last year when you were there. Um, we saw how the team manager's position evolved and how important decision making was. And I think they'll build on that and run with it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm fascinated to see because I think that while the intention is there, the gun goes, and athletes tend to fall into old habits. I would really, I mean, to me, I think the approach you take this year is where you'd almost have to predetermine. I mean, maybe the first round is slightly different. Like I look at the Crown Racing, the team that if I was involved with it, I'd be involved with Crown Racing. I'm not sure. We'll see what happens later in the year. Um, but I feel like you probably use the first round. I mean, to me, at least in the men's race, it would be fairly obvious. I mean, what I'm trying to say, I think that the teams should set a GC and then individually go for, or the rest of the effort is about supporting the GC and getting as many points for the team as possible. And I mean, for the men, I think you'd be making Crown Racing, Hayden Wild. For Brownlee Racing, you're looking at Alex Yee. For, is it Stars and Stripes? It's probably Leo Berger. And then for the other one, I can't remember off the top of my head. But
I don't like it. I think I'd rather have more of the team emphasis than a GC emphasis.
you don't think that, this is, I guess, I suppose that's still that sort of slight challenge we have with Supertri, those that there is still incentives for individual performance, right? It's less like I think they only paying 5 deep this year, and it's overall prize money rather than individual races. But there's still an incentive, right? And I think that if you do follow that pathway, you are going to probably get points. Like I'm not saying the rest of the guys just like go shit. Like I'd be saying, again, and I'm just using Crown Racing because it's the team I'm most familiar with. But I'd be saying, Hayden, you're our guy who's going to get the run splits as part of your performance. You're very good on the bike too, but you've got Vince and Max who are really good swim bikers. So we maybe want Max to maybe you pick one Max. Okay, I want you to go there and absolutely draw the swim. Vince, you're exceptional swimmer, but we need you to maybe go a little bit softer to help tow Hayden up, and then you two can absolutely rip the bike. So you probably get bike points. Like that's the sort of approach I'm saying. So I think that if you can really actually perform as a team and strategically think about the approach, I think we could see some really exciting different
Yeah,
stuff happen
okay.
this
I
year.
see what you mean a little bit clearer now. Yeah, and absolutely. I think the group of athletes that gel fastest and understand how to race as a team will be the ones that find success both as a team but also in that individual GC type type approach because as soon as one athlete goes off script and starts racing for themselves, they lose the support of that team,
Exactly.
and it ain't gonna work for them going forward. So I'm really quite excited to see how it plays out. And fuck me, Crown Racing is a strong team, isn't it? And what we've got on Brownlee Racing on the website, we've got Alex Yee, Jonathan Brownlee, Beth Potter, Olivia Mateus, Jess Learmonth, Jessica Fulgar, Connor Bentley, and Sergio Baxter Canabra.
No, Sophie Colwell.
Cabrera. Not on that team.
Wow.
Um,
Fuck, see what I mean about it being quite hard to get. I would have thought Sophie would be an absolute sure thing.
and then we've got Podium Racing, which is Tim Don's team, which is Gian Laher, Leonie Perio, Fanny Salzi, Vittoria Lopez, Leo Berger, Matt Hauser, Doran Connex, and Kenji Nina.
So no Emma Lombardi?
No,
What the fuck is that?
not shown on the website anyway.
Okay.
And Stars and Stripes Racing, which is Parker Spencer's team. We've got Kathia Scar,
Sure.
McQueen, Kate Zafiras, Taylor Spivey, Seth Ryder, Tim Helwig, and Vasco Velasa.
Wow. Okay. I'm guessing that they haven't named all the athletes who are racing because there's like you'd assume Sophie Cole was going to be there. You'd assume Emma Lombardi's going to be there. Uh, like, yeah,
There
it's
isn't a manager shown for Brownlee Racing or Crown Racing
Chris is
yet.
the team manager for Bahrain or for Crown Racing
Okay.
for the first for the first two rounds at least. I believe from what I've heard is it is. I mean, people have been saying it's going to be like a Jonathan Brownlee doing like athlete slash manager. I've also heard that it is. Oh my God, I'm having a complete mental blank. A British athlete. Oh man, does commentary sometimes. What's happening, Tim? You're having a complete mental blank. I
Does
can't remember.
commentary on what?
What's her name?
Vicky Holland?
No, it's not Vicky Holland. It is just name some British athletes for me, and we'll see if we can.
Male or female?
Female. Recent has still
Still
got
racing?
not so much anymore. I think she's maybe just retired or she's just slowed down. God, I can see her face. It's so annoying.
What does she look like, Tim?
A female triathlete from England. So, uh, anyway, doesn't that's really gonna annoy me actually. Anyway, I'm sure people will find out by the time. I can't be bothered wasting time on it. But yeah, we got the junior races here, Boston this weekend, Chicago the weekend after, which I'm also really, really excited for. That Chicago race in particular looks so exciting to me. I always like it when they go to new races because I mean I didn't love Malibu as a race venue. I think that they can do better. I wish one little thing is I like London being the opener. I think it is such a great way to start the series. I still hope we get that hype. I'm planning. I'm like 90% certain I'll go to London, even if I'm not going as part of the team. I think I might just go over anyway because I do love that event so much. But I mean, I love Supertri, mate. I really think that if you guys are listening, I mean, I'm assuming that if you listen to this, the amount we talk about short course, you probably have an interest in it. But if you're one of these die-hard Ironman athletes like old mate from the weekend who had a crack at me on Instagram, check out Supertri. Supertri is, at least until this, based on everything, it's the gold standard in triathlon broadcast. It is the most exciting concept in triathlon, and the fact that they've come out with a rebrand, we're expecting new things. They've got Will McCloy commentary, who's the best in the business. You know, you've heard the quality of the athletes. Like I'm pumped for this. I really am. This, you know, I will watch all of it.
I forecast they succeed, mate.
Same. Big mate. I tell you, you're taking a huge swing there. I know. I know, James. My first super try was years ago. But yeah, look, yeah, you can it's broadcast on most major platforms. I think it's also on YouTube, whatever. But
Yeah, it's also on their website. If you go on their website, you've got a watch option, and I'm sure that will have some geographical restrictions, but VPN is your answer to all those problems. Just fire
yeah.
VPN it.
But get behind it, guys. You know, we need Super Try is so good for the sport, and the more support that it gets, the better. So head to
Yeah,
there,
absolutely.
check
I,
it out.
I I love watching their racing. I really do.
Hayden Wild wins it for the men's this year.
But like you
And
say, I wish they were starting in London. They like America's an amazing country full of amazing people and experiences, but I fear that the Super League racing I've seen in America, it's never really captured the scale of it. Kind of dwarfs the racing a little bit.
mm, We'll see. Well, good luck to them. Let's
We'll see.
hopefully they're ready to. I mean, America's got a big focus for the next 4 years. They've got the LA Olympics coming up. And Taylor Nibb had some not so nice comments about the potential triathlon course riding around a car park, which gave me horrible flashbacks to Malibu. But James, if people want to find out more about Talking Triathlon, tell them where do they go?
Yeah, if you want to support the show, jump on at patreon.com/talking triathlon. If you want to follow Tim, he's at T14 on Instagram, and I'm at bale.james85 on Instagram. Find us across all social networks at Talking Triathlon on Instagram and at Talk Triathlon on Twitter. If you join the Patreon group, you'll get access to the monthly bonus episode and the social group and all of the other bits and pieces we do, and the incredibly useful WhatsApp group, which keeps me entertained day in, day out.
Also, youtube.com. You can go there. You can find Talking Triathlon. Best place to interact with us. We both make a point of trying to check there and reply to comments and engage with your thoughts. So let us know your thoughts about Supertri. Who are your predictions? Do you like the team racing? Do you not like the team racing? Do you think Lionel Sanders is going to do well in Canada? What do you think this means for his Kona race? Tell us about Sam Long. Give us your predictions.
Yeah, we
all
love
that
the
good
comments
stuff.
on YouTube. Love
And
the little
tell
conversations.
and tell us what you think. I mean, I really genuinely would love this is a call to action. What do you think it's going to take to get some really exciting marathon running at the back end of an Ironman? Like what changes or what could they do as a sport? And I'm not saying that my draft legal approach is the correct answer. I'd love to know what you guys think. And if you're like fuck draft legal, I don't need to see it. I see it every time I mention it. So if you're thinking about coming and saying fuck draft legal, pretend I heard you. I've heard it enough times. But Jimbo, mate, a pleasure as always. We will be back next week to talk about all the action from Frankfurt as well as Supertri Boston. Until then, talk to you later.
Here we are.